Since 9/11, a struggle for control has intensified within the Muslim communities of North America and Europe. New and aggressive voices gained the most attention as some Muslims took to the streets, opposing the policies and sometimes the traditions of the countries they live in. Almost lost in the din is another voice, that of the other Muslims who believe in a more moderate form of Islam, one that blends the tenets of their faith with the traditions of a liberal society.
I wouldn't be taking this time away from my family and my profession and what I do unless I felt that I'm trying to struggle for the soul of my faith.
Scorned by the extremists within their own faith and usually ignored by the mainstream population in Europe, in Canada, in America, they struggle to make up the fabric of an open society. As doctors, politicians, journalists, and television hosts, this is their voice.
If it was not illegal to kill, or if they were guaranteed that there would be no punishment, and some of us would be dead by now.
The streets of Copenhagen, Denmark, where one young man has been shot by another. The wounded man fights for his life and then dies in front of his enraged and grieving family and friends, who have to be restrained by police. Both the killer and the dead man come from Muslim families in Denmark. And from this one murder emerges a challenge to Western legal systems when a local religious figure proposes the case be solved by Islamic law. It was a ruling sought by Abu Laban, a powerful local imam or religious leader who was then in remission from the cancer that would take his life in 2007. Abu Laban had attracted increasing attention, using his mosque as a focal point in the campaign for Sharia, or Islamic law, which he wanted for Denmark's growing Muslim population. And in this murder, he stepped in and attempted to impose a penalty right out of Sharia. It became known as the blood money settlement. He claimed it was simply Denmark's ignorance of Islam that made this ruling controversial.
Some politicians do not appreciate our role to help Muslims to behave themselves and in the same time not to compromise the fundamental values of Islam.
After the murder, he established a payment of 200,000 Danish kroners that he said should be paid by the family of the murderer to the family of the dead man.
You imposed a settlement. Did you feel you were doing that partly because the Danish authorities had asked you, or did you do it for yourself?
We don't like, we are tired and sick of the bad incidents made by the Muslim community. We have to have preventive measures ahead of time, and then we have to rush to sort them out. Bloodshed, you know, within a tribal system, it's like a chain reaction.
It was an attempt to establish Sharia, Islamic law, in a European criminal case. And with it came Abu Laban's intention to exile the killer's entire family from Denmark. By the time of the funeral, Abu Laban was implementing a solution based on the codes of the Middle Eastern tribal societies, a Sharia, or Islamic ruling, that was being put into place outside of Danish law, a ruling that would later dissolve amid the feuding and controversy it created on all sides. But for Abu Laban, the fight for Islamic law in Europe was not over.
This democracy had given us a certain margin. We use it very simply.
Within the Danish parliament, a new and uneasy debate has been taking place over whether or not Islamic religious leaders should be able to make and enforce their own laws. The debate mirrors what is happening throughout the Western democracies, and some Danish politicians have fiercely opposed the attempts of local Muslims to bring in their own so-called parallel society. And none has been more outspoken in this opposition than Nasser Khader, a Muslim who was born in Syria and now is an elected member of the Danish parliament.
I told him, if you want to live in a country where the religion running the country, then I will recommend you go to Saudi Arabia.
For such opinions, he has aroused the wrath of those who want an Islamic parallel society within Denmark.
Sometimes I get mails, letters. Sometimes we will kill you, sometimes we will make your life to hell, and so on. They call you traitor, they call you, if you participate in democracy, it's against God.
Within Denmark, there are radical Islamic groups who recruit young Muslim males, especially those susceptible to extremism. Nasser Khader has found himself facing groups like Hizb ut-Tahrir, who turn his election speeches into chaos.
It's very organized. They came 6, 8, 10, 12, and they don't say anything in the beginning. But when the discussion starts,
fuck you too!
They raise up and speaks a lot of, we don't like democracy, we want to kill the democracy. Trying to destroy the meeting reminds me of what's happened in the 30s in Germany.
Merely participating in the democratic process has brought Nasser Khader attacks from Islamists. Slimane Abdurrahman is an Algerian Dane who trained for jihad in Afghanistan when it was ruled by the Taliban. After 9/11, he was captured and imprisoned for 2 years in Guantanamo.
So the minute that a Muslim goes into the Danish parliament, he stops being a Muslim?
Yeah, because in the Danish, for example, we're talking now of the Danish parliament, then they are making laws. And to make laws, it's only a God that does that. And there is only one God in Islam, and that's Allah. So you're just saying, I'm just like Allah. And you can't do that in Islam.
So Nasser Khader is not really a Muslim to you?
Not anymore.
The attacks and the disruptions of Nasser Khader's rallies by Hizb ut-Tahrir, the extremist group, grew so frequent that he no longer felt safe in the Muslim areas of Copenhagen, where the local religious leaders, the imams, single him out. Saeed Mansour has openly admitted being at the center of Islamist activities in Europe. He is often affiliated with groups who disrupt Nasser Khader's meetings and who routinely dismiss moderates like him as not being a true Muslim.
I don't think of Nasser Khader as a Muslim. I think he's an atheist who does not represent any Muslims.
Shortly after this interview, Saeed Mansour was arrested on terrorism charges by Danish intelligence. For years, he had openly admitted to being a close associate of many notorious terrorists, including his houseguest, Abdul Rahman, the so-called blind sheikh, now serving a life sentence for his role in the attack on the World Trade Center in 1993. And in providing support for extremist groups like Hizb ut-Tahrir, Saeed Mansour openly condemned moderates like Nasser Khader, who opposed their attempts to create an Islamic society ruled by religious leaders.
Every Muslim would want that, and we will do our best to have an Islamic society. It is what our religion demands of us. We are obliged to aim for an Islamic society. It's not only what we want, it's our religion that demands we create an Islamic society.
It is this struggle for the so-called parallel society which is one of the common aims of the Islamists.
Do you believe that you can create a thriving Muslim society in Europe which exists in its own self within the larger Europe?
Yes, and to be fitted within the, what you call it, the local traditions or values or whatsoever.
Can you keep your customs, your system of jurisprudence, your way of being Muslim, and still exist as a society within Europe?
Yes,